Good day, wherever you are in the world. This is Tom Kitchen, otherwise known as Sand Rammer, back over here at my little office for the ye old foundry. I'm going to make a short film, short for me, and it's going to involve making a batch of Petro Bond sand. Okay, Petro Bond sand is the sand that I was using on my entire Navy career, practically, except for the time that possibly we used a little bit of the green sand in San Diego, both when I was going through the school and when I was there as a molder in 77, 78, 1977, 78 time frame, where we made all kinds of neat stuff. When I look back on it, the most educational time, the most education I received was during that time when I was working for DOTC, DATC, FMAG, FMAG, Pacific, abbreviated as PAC, PAC. DOTC FMAG PAC was the name of the command that I was assigned to. Met a lot of really smart people. Retired Navy Senior Chief Molder, Mr. Denbo, was there. This guy could practically pick up hot metal out of a furnace. I've seen him pick up stuff. It wasn't oh, how you doing? It was, and he dropped it. So, but he didn't burn himself so much. Must have had really thick calluses by that time. Okay. And he knew a bunch, and he taught us all, everybody out there a bunch. Anyway, out there in San Diego, I think there was times where we did use green sand on some projects, and then in A school they taught us how to make green sand and the stuff you had to go through. How to test for whatever the moisture content was at the point in time that you were about to use it, and how to add more water. All you got to do for that is just let's see, I am looking for the it's named, the video is named Making a Batch of General Purpose Molding Sand. Okay, that'll cover green sand. This one is going to cover making Petro Bond sand. Once you make the Petro Bond sand, it'll last you, I don't know, you won't have to really do much maintenance to it until you used it a bit. And the reason why you would ever use it, have to maintain it, and what you would have to do is just add some oil to it to make it less dry. Okay, it'll start acting like it's dry, and you won't be able to compress it enough for it to stay compressed. So that's when you have to add some oil. How much you would have to add would depend on how long you went before you needed oil. So you could add, you could add just less than a pound per 200 pound batch, and your sand will be back up, up to snuff and ready to go back to work for you. Now, why do you burn up oil? Well, because your molten metal is certainly hot enough to burn up the oil that you have in the sand, but it's usually only a very small shell of the oil that's where the molding, the molding cavity is. The rest of it usually is not bothered by the heat at all. The worst, on the Fulton, pardon me, submarine tender number 11, which is gone ages ago, in the 70s, I think they sold it, late 70s. Anyway, we used to use Petro Bond sand for everything, including pouring steel. Okay, And so in a normal heat of brass and bronze, you might have, let's say, the thickness of a piece of paper burnt up in the, that where the mold cavity is, like a I don't know, the part of a skin of an onion, all around where the molten metal touched it, that would burn up some of the oil. Okay. Uh, in the future, videos, you can see that the where it's burned up when I pour the aluminum. Aluminum is hot enough to vaporize and cause to flame off. Like candles on a birthday cake. You'll see it, and you right there. That'll be a good example if you remember to remember it. That'll be a good example of why in time you'll have to recover that oil, unless you use the sand a lot to make steel or pour steel. Your granules of silica sand, you just touching the steel is the part that's going to probably gel and melt together, and the clay itself will be destroyed by something that hot. But the clay and the sand is not affected by brass, bronze, aluminum, and the temperatures go below that. Okay, so the sand will last you for ages. The only reason why you would have to have a huge batch of sand is if you made large molds. So let me get started on this. Okay, I'm going to show you some pictures, and I'll be describing things on this video rather than going through the actual measurement and throwing the stuff inside the mixer that I have. Now, the only thing that I could afford was one of those, the larger of the two sizes that they sell, cement mixers that they sell over at Harbor Freight. Okay, it's been working fine. It's on borderline strength-wise when it comes to cooler. In the heat, it doesn't seem like it has a problem, but in the cooler months, it seems like if you just put a 50-pound bag in there, it doesn't want to move. The closer to horizontal that you aim it, it seems like it's too much stress for it, and it bogs down real bad. And I did smell what appeared to be an overheating of the motor. So if you get one of those, keep that in mind. Okay, you start off with it at an angle and let it get into its momentum, and then slowly ratchet your way down, and apparently it gets used to it at that time, and you won't have much problem. You do have to have it almost horizontal when you're mixing. Okay, otherwise it's not going to mix at at any efficiency. All right. So, starting off with, I'm going to show you these pictures. First, I'll show you the formula. Now, I've put this formula for making Petro Bond sand out there a couple, 3 times, but this is part of making Petro Bond sand, so I'm going to put it in this video too. Okay, and right after that, I'll show you. I'm going. Pardon me. Goodness. I'm going to put right after that the latest and greatest source for Petro Bond powder and P1 catalyst. Okay. That's at the Lancaster Foundry Supply in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and you'll have all the information on that page that you need. You can pause this video so that you can write all that stuff down. It's not inexpensive, however, it lasts for ages, and it's the best material I've used for molding that I can advise that you get. Okay, so I ordered all of this. I ordered both the Petro Bond powder, and this is the sack it comes in. And looking down inside the sack, this is what it looks like in there. Petro Bond powder, very, very finely ground powder. It'll without. I mean, you can have just a tiny bit of it fall back into the bag, and it seems like somebody turned on the LP air in there, and hit it, because it comes up in a cloud. So you got to be very careful on handling that stuff, unless you don't mind all of your gear being coated with this. Okay. Next thing is P1 catalyst. Stuff is what's a catalyst? It's a chemical liquid. It's clear. It's a clear liquid. Okay. And it's let's say it's got the specific gravity of around like water almost. It doesn't feel much heavier than that, although I can't promise you with it, but it's like water. Okay. I don't smell much of a smell out of that. Well, don't do anything stupid like put your nose over it and try a big smell, because I mean, it's probably not good for your lungs, not good to have inside you at all. All right. So there's P1 catalyst. Okay, we got the sand I got from Home Depot just down the road from me, less than three minutes away traveling time, and this is, and there goes my phone. And this is the stuff that I got in. It's over in where all the other cement additives and concrete bags and all that stuff is, and it feels somewhat wet, but it didn't have any effect on the wetness. I put this last time. I put it straight into the muller and added the Petro Bond powder and put a cover on it so it wouldn't go everywhere, and did the 5 minutes of churning or mixing, and it didn't have any effect. The water that might be in there didn't have any effect on the mixing at all. Okay, so don't worry about if it feels wet to you. And here's a picture, I should have already shown it to you. Here's a picture of the bag to look for. That's not to say that they won't change their bags. They won't, they might change, but as of 2018, this is what the bag that Home Depot sells the play sand in. The play sand is very, very fine. Okay, so you're guaranteed to have a really smooth surface, unless you don't ram it right. You got to ram it right to be able to have it pushed against whatever you're trying to make and assume that surface. Okay, so but if you get a rough surface, it's not because of the sand. If you get this sand, because that sand is extremely fine, and it's going to give you a really good smooth casting. Okay, so we got what? We got the sand I showed you, the Petro Bond powder I showed you. Next is the oil. I made a huge error the very first time I got the oil. I got a big container, and here's a picture of it, of 30 weight oil. Nowhere on there did it say that it was detergent oil. Also, nowhere on there did it say it was non-detergent. Okay? It had nothing in there. I since discovered from other people telling me that oil that you buy nowadays is assumed to have detergent in it. And I do remember when I was growing up that there was a distinct, non-detergent, detergent categories of motor oil. When I was growing up, I saw those and I remembered those. But I guess they've gone, that the oil people have gone past that and now assume that if you're going to buy the oil that you want detergent oil. You want oil with detergent in it, or a chemical that acts as a detergent. Keeping the inside of your motors clean, and making the any of the stuff that might accumulate in there to come together in little globs and not attach themselves to the inside of the motor. So I made the mistake of buying this big container, thinking that I would need, number one, I would need something that much, and number two, that it was non-detergent. Big mistake. I made my first 2 batches. You buy those bags, by the way, are only 50 pounds each. Okay, remember that, 50 pounds. That's all they are. They're not 100 pounds. So if you're using the formula that I've already shown you, take those materials and only use when you measure it out, only do half of that formula. You're going to have a 50-pound batch of sand. You're going to have what, 2.5 pounds? Let me double check. Yeah, you're going to be having to weigh out 2.5 pounds of Petro Bond powder. You're going to weigh out 1 pound of 30 weight non-detergent oil, and you're going to be weighing out 1/2 ounce of P1 catalyst. Okay, that's what you're gonna have to weigh out. Now those ratios are correct. All right. When I was going through the mix-up or the mistake that I made using that detergent oil, I saw it didn't come out. It looked beautiful when I mixed the silica sand and the powder together. It looked perfectly like it had always been in all the mullers that I ever used. That's what it looked like. It looked great. I put that oil in there, and when that got done mixing for 15 minutes, it looked like cookies and cream. The detergent in the oil cleaned all the grains back off, and so I had oily grains of sand and little nodules of clay mixed throughout the batch. Okay, now it did ram. Okay, it might have been simply just the oil that was wrapped around the grains of sand that made it tacky enough to be able to ram the sand, but it had almost no strength. All right, you can use them in some cases where if you don't have to, move the mold around or put any stress on it after you've rammed it up, that would probably work. But this was not what I was after, and this is not what Petro Bond sand looked like at all. Okay, so I went through in my head. I went through all the different things. What happened? Do I have to add more oil? Do I have to add more? Because I was thinking that this was the proper oil. The fact that it was detergent oil didn't enter my mind yet. But all those different variables, I was trying to compensate for this unusual batch of sand by maybe giving it more time mixing, maybe adding a little bit more clay, the Petro Bond powder, maybe adding a little more P1 catalyst, maybe. Okay, I went through all those things. I tried a few other things and nothing changed. Okay, well, I went and asked the guys and gals on the molders and pattern makers website. Hey, I asked them, is it a given that oil nowadays is detergent oil, instead of non-detergent? And they came back and said, yeah, most everything is detergent now. It will say non-detergent oil if it's non-detergent oil. Okay, so I said, oh well, that solves a big problem. And so I went to the local auto parts store and got me a couple of quarts of the 30 weight non-detergent oil. And then this time it actually had 30 weight non-detergent oil written on it. Okay. When I started weighing out the stuff, I went and got a couple more bags of sand to replace what I had in the ram up bench, and poured that into the mixer. Went and put the amount that I needed of Petro Bond powder in there, mixed it up for the 5 minutes, and when I opened up the container for the 30 weight non-detergent oil. I was pouring it into a measuring device, measuring container, and this stuff was clear. It was very thick. It was 30 weight, but it was clear. There was no, it didn't look like regular oil. And I was trying to sit there and I was trying to think back when we were making this stuff, and I cannot remember if the oil that we used was clear or if it was brownish, or caramel colored, like we normally pour in our cars now. That just means that I just don't remember. Okay, it could have been clear, and if I had had that memory, then I would have been suspicious of the oil that I had bought initially, right at that point in time when I saw it. Anyway, so I poured it, poured out what I needed for that batch, and then what I had also done. See, I know that the mullers, an actual, like a Simpson muller. Simpson mullers was the type of muller that we had on all our ships and over in San Diego. I don't know what they had elsewhere, but it was pretty standard muller, but a Simpson 250. So you could mull like 250 pounds of sand maximum inside it. And what it has, it's like a big drum. Or I know, I'll go ahead and put a picture of it in there too, on this video too. And so, okay, looking at this picture, you look inside. It's like a big tub, okay, that has two big wheels in it, and two plows, what we call plows. The two big wheels, crushes or mixes, almost like kneading. When you knead breaded dough, when you knead dough, okay, it crushes and mixes and smashes and all that, and that's the way in which the muller went and mixed and remixed the sand even after you used it. Okay, the plows, one of them, went around the outside edge of the tub and pushed the sand into the path of the muller's wheels, and the other plow, went to the center of the rotation of the two wheels, and any of the sand that was pushed into there and stuck in there was pressed and pushed out into the path of the pardon me, of the wheels, and the muller's wheels too. Okay, and that's how a muller actually works. It's almost like a person taking the sand and using their hands to crush it and mash it, and thereby mixing all the ingredients up. Well, the mixer that I have, it's just a regular cement mixer. What it does is it moves everything and lets it fall, and it's not falling as a big clump. It's falling as almost like water coming off of a waterfall, and so it mixes things very well inside it. It turns out that it does almost as that much of a good job as a muller does. Okay. So what I did is I went and bought a sprayer. Now the sprayer, you put the ingredients inside the container, and you put the top on there, screw it down, and then you pressurize it with LP air. Okay, I think it said that you can use between 80 and 140 psi, pounds per square inch, air pressure inside this container. And I think what I am going to do is I'm going to up the pressure on my LP air, because I only had it up to 80. Although this worked fine. Okay, the 80 worked fine for me. And when I was taking that, I was pouring the oil inside that, put it back together, pressurized it, and when everything was being mixed, I was just aiming a small stream of oil, and I was just back and forth, spraying this stuff, and it was a very small stream. It was like the size of a pencil's lead, okay, but it still was very good. You didn't just drop, or rather pour a big cup of the oil in the batch and let it run. That would take much longer to mix. Taking a glob like that and then redistributing it through all the sand. I figured I'd better just use this sprayer to redistribute it as best I could while it was moving, and then after that, after it was all into the batch, let it run the 15 minutes, and that worked great. Okay. Then I had to put the P1 catalyst in there. Now you don't have to put a lot of P1 catalyst in there. The amount of P1 catalyst is, well, let's say that if you went and got a shot glass, the kind you use for mixing alcoholic drinks, you would probably only use about that much in a 50-pound, or rather half of that much in a 50-pound batch of Petro Bond sand. Now, how am I going to distribute that evenly? Just pour it in there like we used to do in the Muller? I don't think that would work very good. So what I did is I went and put that amount of P1 catalyst inside that same sprayer, and as the mixer was moving everything, I just sprayed it in there, and well, it worked really good. Okay. So, and let's see here. I don't want to mess up the picture. Okay. So there was a picture in there that I hope I put the picture in there that showed the cookies and cream effect that I got for using the wrong oil. I showed you the bag of play sand. I showed you the bag of Petro Bond powder. I showed you the Petro Bond sand formula and where to get it from, and the wrong oil. Oh yeah, and here's what my Petro Bond Petro Bond sand looks like in my molding bench. Okay. Now this is the sand I'm going to be using from now on. The thing that we always did as molders to see if the sand was right, we would reach into the muller after it was off, reach into the muller and grip a handful of that sand, grip it hard, then open your hand, and if it maintained the form of the inside of your hand as you were gripping it, it didn't fall apart immediately and so forth, then that stuff, it's ready to go to be molding sand. Okay, so just follow the instructions. Keep the times the same. Okay, don't change the times, even if you're using only 50 pounds of sand and half the formula of the rest of the constituents of the recipe. You still, the amount of time that you need to use for mixing, it remains the same. Okay, so everybody out there, you're gonna love this. And it isn't going to cost you $20 a pound or something like that, trying to buy it from all those guys out there that's going to be making it. Okay? I'll tell you what, I mean, you gotta just buy your own and mix it, all right? Even if you have to just mix it laboriously but with a shovel, it's better than spending so much money by getting 10 pounds of it. That's not even, I mean, I may have told you this in a different video, and I believe I have. But just a simple 12 inch by 12 inch by 10 inch flask. I weighed the amount of sand you needed to fill that. I mean, to use inside that container, and it was 79 pounds. Okay, and of course it would be more or less depending on how big the mold cavity that you had to make for that particular mold. But keep in mind that's 79 pounds for just a 12 by 12. You'd be spending a couple of $100 just to get, I mean, maybe even $300 just to get that amount of sand from somebody who's making the sand. You can make your own sand. It's very simple. Okay? The mixers from Harbor Freight are not all that expensive. Certainly less expensive than an actual muller. And they mix the sand nicely. Okay? I don't know how long, I mean, I already have 100 pounds of molding sand in my molding bench. And I probably will be making another 100 pounds in the near future. But I don't anticipate needing more than 200 pounds in as little work as I do. I don't anticipate having to make more than 200 pounds of sand. And so I don't anticipate ruining the cement mixer by overloading it. You know, it's after I've made the sand. After that, the mixer is going to be used to break up the clumps of a rammed up mold. After I, pour molten metal into it and take the casting away, we're going to have to take that and fluff it all back up again, and let the little bit that lost its oil be redistributed throughout the mass, and not be a patch of dry sand in the middle of your sand. It'll all be redistributed. It might even absorb some of the oil from the rest of the grains of sand that's around it, and the strength is returned. Okay. I really stress the Petro Bond powder. Petro Bond sand is by far a better sand to use for molding, and you don't have to worry about steam explosions by having too much water in your sand. Of course you have the smoke coming off of it, and you have to have it outside away from things, so that the little flames that you'll see coming out of the vent holes, it's like candles on a birthday cake. You don't want any flames near anything flammable inside your house. You don't want anything like that to accidentally torch something. So that when you pour it out away from the house. It doesn't have to be yards away. Just to where it doesn't accidentally touch a cloth that's hanging, let's say, or a piece of paper that's hanging nearby. Okay. And don't inhale the burnt oil. It can't help your lungs. I've done many pours, and I've breathed tons of it, and I'm still breathing now. But who knows how well my lungs might have been if I hadn't have breathed that in all those years. Okay. I'm fine now at 65, and it really didn't hurt me very much. So, but I would advise you not to breathe it in. Okay, put a mask on. What you're breathing in when that smoke is, those are the particles being taken away of the burnt sand, or rather the burnt oil, and the paper masks should be able to keep that from going inside your lungs. So, if you have any questions, well, for instance, the spray thing that I got, I got that from McMaster Car. Okay, it was something around $70 or something like that. But it's you can highly pressurize it, and you can use it for other things other than just the oil. But I'm just going to be using it for making Petro Bond sand. I don't want to mess up. It's got a little O-ring up on, a rubberized O-ring up on top, and I don't know if you put other chemicals in there whether that would be messed up. But the rest of it's nothing but metal, so it's going to last you for quite some time. Can't think of anything else on this. So make your own Petro Bond sand. You'll thank me for it. Okay. If you have any questions, if there's something I left out in this video, if there's a gap in your knowledge, please ask me the questions, and I'll probably feel stupid for forgetting it, but that's fine. If I forget it, I forget it. I don't want you to make Petro Bond sand that that looks like cookies and cream and won't work for you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this video, and as you see, it's a little bit slower, or rather a little bit smaller, and maybe you'll watch all the commercials. I hate commercials. And it maybe will, you'll certainly benefit by this, making Petro Bond instead of making green sand. It's a little more expensive, but you absolutely get more physical, or rather mechanical, capabilities out of this sand than you do the other. All right. So, Liberty Call to all of you out there who know what I mean by that, and please, you can make comments at the end of this, and press like or dislike depending on whether you liked it or disliked it. Make some kind of comment. These people over there at YouTube, they like to see that. Okay, see you later.